What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the next episode of Arena Goat Talk, talking arena ball with some of the greats. On this next episode, I have three-time champion and former coach of the year, Coach Trigg. Mike Trigg, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, AJ. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. Appreciate your time. Just wanted to get you on and, kind of pick your brain, find out about your history, let everybody know about you, and, just share some stories that you got. I know you got some good stories.
Sounds good. Spent a lot of time in the AFL. Really, really good part of my life, an exciting time in my life. And it's hard to believe I haven't been involved in it for quite a while now. My last season was in 2009. I finished up in the Deuce, which was a rough ride compared to being in the AFL for sure. But like you said, great stories, great memories, great people. A lot of people that helped shape my life as a young man. So I am an AFL alumni. I'm an AFL till the day I die.
Mm-hmm. So where are you from originally?
I grew up in San Antonio, Texas, came out of Theodore Roosevelt High School there on a scholarship to East Texas State University. To show how old I am, my school's changed names twice since then. Went to become Texas A&M Commerce, and then became East Texas A&M last year. But one of the things I take a lot of pride in playing for the Lions there was I played for some really good coaches, and I was introduced to the AFL through affiliations of coaching and mentors and their friendships, a generation above mine. So it's had a lot to do with that. Tim Markham and Eddie Val, my head coach, were on the same staff at a high school in San Antonio in 1976, which is before my time. Jerry Trice was also a member of that staff. And so the tentacles of all of those guys go in different places, the USFL folding a lot of the exodus of those coaches coming into the AFL in the late 80s. It was really those tentacles for me. So when I finished at East Texas, I had a chance to go to the Minnesota Vikings training camp. I didn't make it. Like a lot of other AFL players, we had to find somewhere to try to hang on to see if we could potentially get back into the league. And arena football was that conduit for me. But getting into the AFL when it was only 3 years old, it gave me an opportunity to play 2 years at the institution of the league at that time, the Detroit Drive. So being able to be a part of that with Coach Tim Markham, the winningest arena ball coach of all time, I was exposed to a lot of the game and a lot of it at a high success level, and that helped me become a head coach at a very young age, a coordinator at a very young age, and being around some of those guys. So I was with three different coaches in the AFL as an assistant coach. I started off with Drew Pearson in the Dallas Texans in 1991. And then after that, I was with John Paul Young. And then after that, Jerry Trice was the head coach of the Dallas Texans in their final year. So after that, I was able to go to the Fort Worth Cavalry and become my first head coaching experience there, but it only lasted a year. The team was sold to Mexico during an expansion phase, but it never manifested down there. My owner, Woody Kern, went and bought the Tampa Bay Storm and went with Woody, and I was able to land with the Milwaukee Mustangs at that point. In 1994, was there the coach for 3 years. From there, I went to Grand Rapids for 6, with the Philadelphia Soul for about a year and a half, and then I was in the AF2 with the Corpus Christi Sharks for 3 years, and then at that time, my AFL career was over.
What did you think of your first impression? What was your first impression of arena football when you got a chance to see the game?
So it's almost one of the kind of points that I'd like to make about where the AFL is right now at this point. So this is in the late 80s. The first year the AFL played in 87, I believe, with 4 teams. And it was coming on late at night on ESPN2. I want to say Friday nights and Saturday nights from about 10 o'clock at night, maybe to about 1 in the morning Central Time. So I think most of us back then saw the game, didn't know a whole lot about it, but it was on during the entertainment time of most young guys out maybe going to a bar or a sports bar or, doing things that young people do at that time of night. And it was an entertaining game because of the amount of contact and the high scoring. So those have always been the hallmarks of the AFL. And I think that time slot was really what caught a lot of people's attention. One of the things that the AFL did when I was a player is it really didn't start until May. And the season was June, July, and the playoffs were in August. So the AFL time slot at that time, the way that I look at that, was perfect. If I don't make the NFL and I get cut, I have an opportunity to try to continue to play. And if I'm doing well in an AFL season, I may have a chance to land in an NFL training camp late in the summer. And we also didn't compete with anybody. So all of the arenas for hockey and basketball that we play in are heavily occupied during the winter, moving up into the spring. So we were playing in the summertime when there was no competition. I remember with the drive, we could work out at Joe Louis Arena most weeks. And to try to replicate that playing system is impossible outside. So to be able to be into your home arena and be able to do that. So like if you're, with the Predators, you probably were challenged to be in the arena a whole lot of times. Same thing with Arizona out west and whatnot. So we really cherish those practice times. But the time of the season, it allowed for a player to be in his spring semester. He could finish his college spring semester. He could still make training camp, sometimes a little bit late. He'd be able to play in the summer and use it as a supplement while you continued your studies. And I understand why the AFL moved to the time slot that they're still in, but I don't understand why they stay there. The reason that they and the NBC abandoned their contract, and the former commissioner at the time decided that we had to take advantage of that, and that's arguably a smart move that everybody would have taken, because if we could have got our rating numbers really high, then we could still be rolling the way that we were back in the day, where everybody could, truly make a living at the sport and make it their full-time deal. But when that didn't happen, and when that evaporated and things went the way they were, I don't understand why we're still not in that time slot. My logic to you, EJ, is so many college seniors come out and want to play, and they're not going to make it. So they need another opportunity to continue to play if at all possible. And if the time frame was in that after the spring semester, that's your summer job. And if it works for you, great. Then I always remember when the Detroit Drive season was over for me in my first year in 1989, I came in a little bit late, but I went right into graduate assistant coaching at my university. And I was able to coach the whole fall and the spring, go back and play again as a graduate assistant, play one more year, still come back and hit the football season after the Arena Bowl was over, and coach again. So it was a great compliment to the timing of college sports. And the reason that's important to me is it's really not necessarily a game at that time where you could afford to make a true living at it. So it was a supplement and an opportunity. And I think in order for the league to sustain without television revenue and monies, that time frame lends itself to more players, more availability, less competition for the sports dollar. Because generally the AFL was always a summer complement to baseball. So if you really weren't into the baseball and you love football, we were the nice appetizer before everything got rolling. And we didn't have to compete with other forms of football. Right now you have the UAE, UF or XFL playing spring ball in there. There were two leagues that were trying to play in there. You got the AFL trying to play in that window. You've got baseball and hockey going on. So I know I've taken more than your time that you wanted to hear about right now, but I think if the AFL in its present state would go back to its roots and get into the arenas at that time when you have far less competition, maybe a WWF or E or whatever it's called now will come in and kick us out of our reel. But we were able to have our dressing room, have our practice facility, and everything gave us the opportunity to work out inside on the game system. And when you don't have that, particularly in the winter, you're really challenged to find indoor spots to be able to get some kind of quality product. And of course, as you know, outside, it's very hard to replicate. So it was frustrating that we didn't always have our own environments. And I think when we're competing with basketball and hockey, it's tough.
Talk about the USFL kind of feeding an arena league, because out of everybody I talked to, no one spoke on that.
So the genesis of a lot of coaches and a lot of the arena football game itself, many people credit to Mouse Davis, who did the run and shoot offense that he had a lot of credit for when he was at Portland State and had Neil Lomax. The refugees from the USFL had a lot to do with the start of Jim Foster's creation of doing the AFL in 1987.
and I should probably have brushed up on my history, but the Denver Dynamite was the team that won the championship that year. And Tim got a lot of his stuff from Mouse Davis because of the way our game was run. And truly, you could go all the way to the U of H when they had their great success in the late 80s, and all of the plays that we had from the Detroit Drive were the same plays being called by U of H. They just didn't have an X on the backside, but they had the rest of it. So the USFL coaches, the refugees, that network of coaches had a lot to do with Foster's game those first couple of years. So when they were displaced, the AFL was available. This was prior to the World League, prior to the spring leagues. So like you and I talked about earlier, it was a late night, Friday night, Saturday night game on ESPN and ESPN2. And you were probably out at a club just watching it. But it was an exciting game. It looked like a really fun game. So for myself personally, because of the personal relationships with my college coach and Tim Markham, that's how I got my opportunity. I had a brief stint with the Minnesota Vikings in 1989. I got cut. I didn't have anything going on. Got a letter from the Detroit Drive. Nobody else was going to, offer me or pick me up. So I thought, why not? And it was pretty interesting. To be completely honest with you, that first training camp, Jim Foster rented the college at Rensselaer, Indiana, that the Bears used to have training camp at. And all of the teams met there. Everybody flew into Chicago and got bussed down. And we had was it 6 teams at the time, or maybe even 8? We all had training camp together. And it was truly not uncommon. While we were all had on our grass fields and we had all of our own teams, we shared practices, we shared scrimmages, and the coaches would eat dinner at night at the big main table, and we would all be out in the cafeteria. And you may have somebody come over and tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, by the way, you're no longer with Detroit, you're going to Chicago.
Oh, wow.
You're now a Bruiser, you're going back and forth. But there was a camaraderie and a uniqueness to having that shared training camp in the dorms. And most of us were kind of familiar with the way that training camps were done at colleges, and of course from the pro angle it was a little bit different, but it was not the most extravagant training camp that you'd ever talk about. A lot of Mike Holt was a quarterback there at the time, and Ben Bennett was there at the time, and everything was, the food is terrible and the whole deal. And I remember walking out and I called my dad. I'm sorry if this is a boring story, and
Go ahead.
I didn't know how I had gray practice gear on that had an X through it. And I couldn't understand it. And Markham told me, he said, well, we put the X through it so you guys won't steal it. I was like, are you serious? We're out here playing pro football, and we're down here at training camp in Rensselaer, Indiana, and I'm a pro football player with a gray set of shorts on it with an X on it, and with a Sharpie D on my shorts for Detroit. Because everybody's stuff was the same.
Uh-huh.
And of course, our helmets didn't have the decals, so all the helmets were just generic. And I called my dad and I said, hey, I don't really think this might be where I need to be. I'm not sure this is pro football. It doesn't feel that way, the whole thing. And he said, you know what? He goes, why don't you just get your bus ticket and bus yourself back home, and you can go to work at the hospital as a file clerk like you were before you were waiting for this opportunity, and then you can move on with school and not worry about this. Or you can shut up and you can grind it out and see if this leads to something.
Mm-hmm.
So there's my dad in a nutshell. I'm calling him for some love and a little compassion, and he's going to kick me in the pants and tell me, if you can't find that you're enjoying an opportunity to play pro sports, then you come home and just go back to the hospital. So obviously I stuck it out, and then had a chance to play 2 years for the Drive and won 2 championships, and was around some really good guys, and I got to learn the run and shoot. And it was an interesting offensive concept coming from a guy that was with a straight pro offense, but we were basically fullback, tailback, huddle every play, and conventional offenses at the time. So for my coaching career and for my ability in the AFL, the experience that I got in 1989 with Tim, and then in 1990 with Perry Moss, 2 of the Hall of Fame coaches that kind of set the standard for a long time. The only one I didn't play for that was in that triumvirate would have been Larry Kaharick at Tampa. But the system, the game, the motion coming downhill from the CFL, the two-way play. And EJ, I know you came in, what were you, 2003 or 4?
I came in 2000. I played in the Deuce 2002, and then 2003 is my rookie year with the Preds.
Okay, so were you playing both ways, or
Yeah,
had we changed the
I
rules where it was single platoon?
I was going both ways until when I went to Chicago. Was that 2007? I think that
Okay.
was when Elway got everything switched up, kind of deal. And so I think that was the first time that everybody was one way.
And so that was tricky to have guys play both ways. You know, to play it was one thing. I believe as the generations have come through, there's very little two-way play anymore. It's the anomaly. But when I was in high school in the early 80s, everybody had an offensive position, everybody had a defensive position because you had to flip it. So, I mean, I wasn't the most aggressive safety in America, but it was a good experience for me to learn how to play safety so that I could see how defenses were run, and I knew what my role was, whether it was strong or free. And I didn't have the foot speed to be a significant defensive player, but I did learn the game that way on how to put everybody in the right place and make calls and do that. And I think that makes you a better player on the offensive side, and vice versa. You have a better understanding. But my son's generation, the Generation X to Generation Z, very few two-way players. You know, even in youth football, they kind of put you out there and that's what you're going to play. And I think a lot of football misses the two-way play. I think a lot of players miss that opportunity. And then, like you said, with the nail on the head, everything was geared toward the NFL with the former commissioner and John Elway and all them coming in. Instead of maintaining the integrity of our game, the way that it was played, when you went to single platoon and not have to worry about a big old offensive lineman, have to have the breath to be able to rush the passer and go from offense to offense, and the substitution rules that we had, which were very limiting. It was a chess match. The AFL game is underappreciated by the fan because they don't really understand the intricacies of how we did our substitution rules and the challenge that it was and the strategy that was associated with it. So in many respects, EJ, I think people like myself, people like yourself, we're not needed if it's just the NFL indoors. Because there's a lot to the game that you don't have to look for. Personnel. You take a player like yourself, take a player like a contemporary that I had, Tony Bowick, who played for me. Tony was a 270, 275 guy. He wasn't a big burly nose, but a tremendous athlete. And he was a defensive pass rusher like yourself, but we could turn you around and play tight end. And if you had your hands full with a 330-pound Corey Mayfield or something like that, well, we would slide protect, or we would not necessarily leave you on an island, or in your case, being a little light in the pants, you'd have to learn how to cut or hold pretty good and try to get away with it.
I short set my ass off. That's what I did. I would short set to be an athlete. Because if I give you a head of steam, it's over. If I give a Corey Mayfield a full head of steam, I learned that in training camp because Fran used to put Ernest on me.
There you go.
And that's how I learned how to block somewhat, at least get in the way. Because I would try to do this beautiful kick step, and Ernest knocked me out the way.
And then from a play caller point of view, you're watching those matchups. Where do we have an advantage? Where do we have a disadvantage? Can I hold the ball and do a 5-step drop, or is that out of the window? I got to cut, chop, and get the ball out and move it. So there was an awful lot to the two-way part of the game that I truly missed when they made the rule changes. And again, the fan doesn't necessarily see it or appreciate it. The fan could sit in the stands and go, "That guy is terrible. Why in the world is he trying to pass block that guy?" Well, because he has to be out there. We got nobody else that we can rotate till we get to the quarter or whatever. And then, of course, injury made things super, super tough. Now you're really short-sighted. But I loved the game. The game itself was so intriguing to me. It was such a chess match to look and see who the Predators, for instance, would be rolling out there at fullback linebacker. Is McGowan out there or not? Or is there some guy I've never heard of? And if I've never heard of him, then I don't worry about the blitz so much. Or if they've got a guy that I've never heard of, I don't have to worry about them trying to run the ball in short yardage because you can't put a hat on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to run through somebody to get positive yards. And a lot of people didn't necessarily understand that, the jack in the box or the weak side linebacker not being able to leave that area. But the whole thing was to promote offense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the whole chess match from personnel, go work a guy out. And one guy is fantastic on one side of the ball, but really limited and doesn't have good feet and good athleticism. I'd take an EJ Bird all day long as opposed to a guy who was big and stiff and looked good in the gym. I mean, you've got to be an athlete to play our game, even the bigger guys.
Yes.
Because they were also asked to play specials.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're bringing all this ingredient in there together, you've got to have an athletic team, and they've got to be in shape. And a lot of guys could have been some great arena footballers, but they weren't committed to the craft to make sure that they had the win to be able to do that, because you couldn't be a liability in the original days of the AFL if you couldn't cover kicks. I mean, there was an awful lot to be asked of everybody on that short roster. So I think the game is beautiful. I love the game. I understand the limitations that it has. I understand where it is in its present state. I'm hoping that Jeff Fisher, Gary Compton, Jerry Kurz, and those guys can find a happy median in there where the game can continue and kind of be under our brand. And I don't mean that ugly. I mean, you were in the NFL and you were in other places, but the Arena Football League was the original game. The game is awesome with the nets. When people play it without the game system, I think we lose a little bit of luster in there.
Mm-hmm.
And, whatever people want to do with the rules, so be it. But there's nothing like watching grown professional football players get after each other from a basketball perspective. You can't replicate being that close truly to the action. And if you were going to spend the extra $25 or $40 a ticket and get down in those first three rows, you couldn't not watch the game, or you could have a football in your face or a beer flying, or worse, or a player coming in and running in the stands. But there was a lot of really exciting things to be a part of. And then as I matured into a coach, you're standing on the sidelines and you got that damn predator standing right beside you while you're trying to call plays with his outfit on. You've got every drunk person in Orlando in the first four rows screaming in your full volume. And I remember a couple of games I was getting my ass kicked, and I just looked over and the guy's criticizing me, drawing me crazy. And I just looked over and go, all right, well, so what would you run? You're so smart. You got it all figured out. He goes, well, I'd throw to number 11, and then I'd call a play, and we would throw to number 11, and that guy would think, holy crap.
See, I can do his job.
Yeah, he's nothing special. I remember we got our ass wore out in Oklahoma City in 2000. And this guy was just dogging me the entire time, just standing there. You're incompetent, and I'm being as nice as I can. It was a little more profane-lated.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally looked at him and I go, hey, what do you want to run? What would you do? I'm going to give you this next play call right now. And he goes, well, I'd run an out. I go, okay. And I called bingo, which is just a run and shoot name for the inside guy running out.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot who was running with me. Thomas Bailey, I think, was a receiver from Auburn. And he goes, I can't run the out because the corner's sitting there. I said, well, I'll run him off. We'll tell him to run him off. And we completed the out. And that guy was my best friend for the next 2 quarters. He still wore me out, but I mean, he pulled off the deal. So that kind of interplay truly with fans and, people getting after it and all that. Most people took it in good spirit. But I found if you incorporated them a little bit with just some dialogue,
Yes,
it was a lot better than just the guy who was insane. So, but again, you never get to experience that. You couldn't be on the sidelines in Philadelphia and talk to Sirianni or
no, not at all.
anywhere in that and have that kind of an environment. But arena football at the Wachovia Center, at the Spectrum before they tore it down, passionate fans, if that's a polite way to put it. But if you're winning, it was great. If you were losing, it wasn't great at all.
When you when you were at Detroit, what was that kind of, that environment, with because in that time they were so dominant in their time, so not everybody understands or even has that input of what that Detroit drive, team, the environment, the locker room, what that was like with that specific team.
So I got to play for a team that had a 91% winning percentage from the time it started in 1988, won the first 3 Arena Bowls in a row that they were in existence, lost to Tampa Bay, came back in 92, won it again, and then lost to Tampa Bay again. Funny thing, Detroit never beat Tampa, ever. Only team they never beat. And of the 5 Arena Bowls they have and the 7 appearances that they had, they couldn't beat the Storm. So Markham always had this thing with Caharet. But back to your original question, Mike Ilitch owned the Detroit Red Wings, and the Red Wings were a big deal at the time. We were having practice when Sergei Fedorov defected from Canada and came into the Joe Louis Arena with all the cops and everything around it.
Mm-hmm.
There was this big yoked up Russian in the Red Wings weight room. And everybody was like, who's that guy? They're like, hey, it's Sergei Fedorov. Of course, most Americans don't really know international hockey, but he was committed to the Red Wings, and he was committed to the drive. So the beauty of playing there at that time when it was really a frugal league, Mr. I was very much involved. And I know the league had rules, but I'm not sure all the rules were enforced. But we had some pretty good players around there, and we were taken care of. And then, as you would imagine, there was a great disparity amongst the league. There were some owners that were, trying to do it, and some owners that already owned pro teams. So we lived in nice places, and we were fed and taken care of. And some of the other stops along the way where I coached, the Dallas Texans, for instance, were pretty humble experiences for the players and for ourselves. But Detroit was a winning environment, and it was serious business. And the beauty of our games at the Joe Louis Arena, and we sold them all out. And the reason we sold them out, Mr. I supposedly had a really favorable lease, and Olympia Arenas had it, and he made sure that the building was full. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure everybody paid to get in there. But the rumor, and of course, you just hear things, but our GM at the time, Gary Vito, told us that in the 8 arena games played in the summer of 1990, there was more beer sold than all 40 of the home hockey games. Now, that's about a 5-to-1 consumption ratio. But I can tell you, in those venues and in that arena, when we played in the Joe Louis Arena in the late 80s and early 90s, it was a thing. Mm-hmm. They had standing room only seats that they would sell. But Mr. I had the concessions contract, and evidently it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. NCS and SE for us to have a full building, and he insured it. So I had plenty of tickets to give out for the games. And some of my teammates got really good at bartering a lot of different things.
A little extra money on the side.
Be able to do it. I'm not saying that was going on, but you never had to have any dry cleaning. You could always get into a club. You could always probably get some drinks. So there were a lot of perks at playing for the Drive at the time. And it was such a great experience. And then I was humbled, like I said, in some of the other stops along the way, because a lot of teams in the AFL had a hard time staying alive. But Detroit was special.
Yeah, it was like I said. That's a team. Not many people that I've spoken with so far had much input on. So it was, definitely good to hear some of the, the special things about that situation. You had to, like I said, yeah, input that I haven't heard or had anybody speak on yet. So what about your transition from playing to coaching? Like, how did, I guess, talk about the story of that time period?
I'll try to segue quickly into a bit of business piece, and nobody solicits me or asks me about the status of the AFL, but I want to segue it this way. Playing in the AFL in the late 80s and early 90s was not a problem. The game itself was training camp in May. The schedule was June and July. The playoffs finished in August. We basically exited right before the NFL kicked off their regular season. But the beauty of that is you have 10,000 plus college seniors that come out every year. And in May, if you haven't been drafted, what are you going to do? So there's plenty of talent that wants to continue to play. And if you keep it in that time frame, I think it's perfect. Players that are still looking for their degree, players that are graduated but they can go to postgraduate work. The long story short here for me is we took the gamble to be on NBC. And I understand why the former commissioner did it. You needed that opportunity to see if we could get the ratings so that we could take it to a different level with the pay, with advertisers, with sponsors, and then the growth. And he always touted that we were the fourth major sport. We had an opportunity on NBC, and they did a decent job of marketing it. But I just don't believe the league itself had enough following for advertisers, for marketing people to sink their teeth into our game. We didn't really have a demographic or a following, I think. And that, as much as we tried with that, we had to take over the NBA on NBC's calendar. And when they did that, training camp now is in January, February. We're playing early because we're in that whole basketball block. Complication is you can't practice in your arena. Hockey and basketball are full bore. Where we, in the summertime when I played the game, we were in the Joe Louis Arena for 3 weeks out of 4, because other than maybe a wrestling event or a concert that would come in, we could set up the game system and practice inside. And as you know, that's so important as a player and a coach to have the true confines, the true layout. When you go outside, everything just kind of throws out the window with the wind and you can't inflatable barriers or just drawing chalk lines. It ain't the same. Trust me, you got to be in that box and hit that wall. It's a whole different feeling. There's no running through everything. You're going to hit it or get down. So we lose that element, that time frame for practice, for viewership, because now we're competing against hockey. We're competing against basketball. And, the NFL just finished, and now we're right after the NFL. The old days, we had a break. Then we came in May. You didn't have to worry about a kid having to leave school to be able to make training camp. You might be late, but you're going to come in if you were an established player. And then you didn't have to worry about losing the fall semester. So that long thing said, and my hope to the AFL is go back. Screw hockey and basketball. Be the football summer complement to baseball, because not everybody loves baseball. But a lot of people love football, so it gives you something to have in that time frame. Get away from the spring. That's all I'm saying. I think it's a better business model. It gives you a better time frame, and it gives you better marketability. So for me, I'm playing. I go back to school because I don't really know if can I be a pro football player. I go back and graduate assistant coach. So I'm a GA, and I'm an assistant coach at a small school where I'm actually coaching. I'm not making coffee for people and standing around and making phone calls. I'm on the field, and I'm learning how to coach receivers now. I'm learning how to coach quarterbacks. I'm learning how to coordinate offense outside of being a player who was, running plays and in meetings. It took on a whole different challenge for me. So the AFL gave me the ability to have a summer job, earn some money, and still go back and contribute as a graduate assistant coach. And that's how I got into the coaching angle of it, because as the league grew, my first true head coach that gave me an opportunity was NFL Hall of Fame wide receiver from the Dallas Cowboys, Drew Pearson. And Drew Pearson asked me if I had any interest in playing. And I realized at that point in my life that I got replaced by Art Schleister at the Drive, so I didn't know where my place would be to even be a starter again and try and play. I felt like I needed to make real money, and I wasn't really sure I wanted to continue as a player. And he wanted someone who knew the arena game because he was foreign to him. So the Cowboys experience for me in 1991, the owner was Lanier Ritchie, an oil and gas guy out of Tyler, Texas, and he hired Drew. Well, I got to coach with Dick Nolan, a former NFL Hall of Famer, an NFL player, an NFL head coach of the Saints and the 49ers, and he was retired. And so he was just hanging out and helping Drew be a coach because Drew was a player.
Mm-hmm.
And on that staff, I kid you not, EJ, and I grew up a Cowboys fan from Texas. Every swinging Hall of Famer, Randy White, Ed Too Tall Jones, the Bullet Bob Hayes, Bob Lilly, uh, just name it, Robert Newhouse. They all came to practice.
Mm-hmm.
They all kind of coached up our guys because they were friends with Drew. They're all, in Dallas soaking up their post NFL career. Roger Staubach. It was amazing. And to be around those guys and learn from NFL guys of that pedigree and that experience was immeasurable for me. I was a kid in a candy store just trying to be cool and just, accept that I was a part of all that. But it was awe-inspiring for me, to be honest. So Drew gave me that opportunity, and then I had a chance to make coaching money, which was better than player money, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So why not? And because the league was growing and they needed people who really knew the game, as we talked about earlier, for the two-way element, for the recruiting element of trying to emulate players that were really good at the time, because that was your model, and see if you could get somebody at a scouting combine or something to look like EJ Burt. Hey, that guy can do that, so let's pull him in. That type thing, that mentality. So it was great. It was a great time to be a coach. It was a great time to be in the league. I didn't know what real money was. I thought I was making real money, but hey, it was worth it while you were working on your graduate degree. And then all of a sudden, the league expanded quite a bit, and they needed some new head coaches. And I was 27 years old, and I went and found an owner who was a minor league baseball player there around the Metroplex when the Texans had folded. And he goes, "What do you want to do with it?" I said, "I want to be your head coach." He goes, "All right," and that was it.
It's just that easy.
Then I had a chance. Well, I mean, I had to assert myself a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you I was dishonest, but I put on my suit and I acted like I was a representative of the Arena Football League looking for an ownership group, and I was just trying to find a job, baby. So we got the stuff from the league office and presented it to him, and he had the money and wanted to do it, and it was an interesting experience. Anybody who was a part of the Fort Worth Cavalry with me as a head coach, it was just a bunch of 27 to 22-year-old kids trying to figure out what the hell we were doing out there, and it was a lot of fun. So that was a great experience, and did well enough to get to Milwaukee, who had an old experienced coach, but they hadn't won a game, and the Cavalry actually was sold to Mexico City, but they never fielded a team. Woody Kern, my owner there, went and bought the Tampa Bay Storm and ran with Markham. And I was a free agent, I guess, if you will, and Milwaukee was winless, so they gave me an opportunity to go up there, and that's where I met my wife. And I got players like Gary Compton that, did very well to come up there. He met his wife up there. Just the way the league can move you to a team and to a place, and we had some success there. I got fired. And I'll never forget when I got fired, he looked at me, the 19-year-old GM I was working for, and he said, "You can't beat Kurt Warner in Iowa, and you can't beat Shedrick Bonner in Arizona. We'll never win an Arena Bowl with you." I said, "Okay, those two guys are pretty good." But that got me to Grand Rapids, and that was a magical place to coach and be a part of, and to be able to win Arena Bowl 15 with the comprehensive group of players that we had, led by Clint Dalzell, Michael Baker, Tony Bowick. It was really something. Those were great times. I got to do that for 6 years. They were going to scale back a little bit, and Philadelphia and Buffalo were looking for new coaches, so they allowed me to interview. So I got to be John Bon Jovi's first coach that he got to fire, and was there for a little bit, and take a little bit of credit for at least getting the team off the ground, and then I ended up like where you started in the Deuce. And did that for 3 years for Doug McGregor, who owned the Austin Wranglers. He had 9 AF2 teams at one point. He had an idea of monopolizing that whole thing, but we weren't really successful with the Sharks. The Deuce is its own set of challenges with not being able to pay players a whole lot of money and a lot of lean times and lean budgets. I mean, it's just tough. It's tough to get quality players to be able to sustain. You get a guy going, but he just can't afford to keep playing year after year. So that was a challenge in and of itself. But the game was awesome. The game has been a beauty and a blessing for me. I wouldn't trade that experience as much as I may have to work till the day I die because I wasn't preparing for my retirement during those years. I wouldn't trade it in for anything. To be in the arena and truly be a part of the AFL game, and back to the days with the Joe, to be able to go into the Joe with 19,000 people, standing room only, to play at the arena in its peak, to play at what was Tampa's? The Times. I forgot that it was named after the newspaper, but I was also at the Suncoast Dome when it first started, when they ran the field out first baseline. And they had a great team there too, to play at America West, to play at the HP out there against San Jose. All of those venues and being a part of, I mean, even Grand Rapids. We only had 11,500 that we could hold, but the community supported us. So it was a big deal. You know, we kind of had a minor league team in a mid-major market, but we were treated well. We were their team, and it carried a lot of respect, and it was special. I do miss it. I can't lie to you. But I miss a lot of the little things, EJ. I miss the bus. I miss the locker room, meetings, pre-practice. You know, I don't miss kind of the discipline and the drama sometimes when players get in trouble and you've got to worry about all that. And going to bed on a Saturday night knowing that the flight doesn't leave until 5 a.m. and what's going to happen during that period of time. Because young men do what young men do. But it was just the travel. It was fun. It's a great time. Great time in my life. Great time to be a part of the AFL. And I do miss it. So my best hope is that the AFL continues and finds a way to get their footing where they can get back into some kind of a consistency and prominence.
Yeah. So we're limited on our time here. Only got a couple more minutes. But what kind of advice would you give to a young player that's debating on if arena? You said some good stuff about arena already, but what's kind of like a quick kind of selling point for players to kind of play, you know, indoor football, arena football, to kind of give it a shot?
Kurt Warner was I believe, a 1994 training camp invitee, 1-year starter from Northern Iowa. And he went up against Mark Brunell and one of the, I forgot the other, the Detmers, and a guy named Brett Favre. He wasn't going to make the team, but he had a chance to at least taste it. Clint Dalzell went to the Browns and got cut. You're going to be in that scenario as a player, and then what are you going to do? You have the rest of your life to grow up and sit around and be fat and talk about it like I am with you right now. But you have that small window to truly be able to play. And if you have that opportunity to play and you're healthy, you can grow up later. And you let things get into your life. I got to make money. Oh, this girl's going to leave me if I don't get on track. Make all the excuses you want. But if you can play and you want to play and you can play, then find a place. Put it all out there. You might get cut, but don't walk away from the game not knowing that you could have made it. Because for the one story that's Kurt Warner, for the one success story that's Clint Dalzell, for the things that guys like that were able to do by playing, that's a lifetime of memories. And if you just walk away from it bitter and I got cut or I'm not going to play at that level, you're cheating yourself out on some stuff. Because I guarantee you, if we had I don't even know what the reunion is now, from 87, 40, almost 40 years. If we had a 40-year anniversary and all the arena football players could go back and talk, you wouldn't see anything but smiles back there. The things that you can do as a young man, the bonding that you can make to truly play and go represent a city, those are things that you think about for a lifetime. You can take away a lot of things in my life, but you can't take away my season in 1989 and 1990 in Detroit. You can't take away all the seasons I got to play and coach, but winning an Arena Bowl championship in 2001, this is 25th anniversary for that team. We've already put a little chain out there and some stuff, and it's kind of magic.
Mm-hmm.
There's something to be said about the guys that you're around when you formulate yourself from a young man into a man, and those experiences are worth it. And don't quit playing if you can. If you have a chance, see it out. Even if you played 1 year in the AFL, 1 year of indoor football, you'll know at the end of it if it's worth it to keep going or not. But gosh, I wouldn't trade in those 2 seasons I had as a player for anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely miss those days, and I feel like when it comes to playing, like there's so many opportunities out there where you can go play for Grand Rapids for a year and you make connections and you find a job out of the deal. You find a business owner that has some kind of belief in you. You know what I mean? That just the connections that you can make from this game are invaluable as well.
They're decisions that chart the course of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a handful of those as a man. Where am I going to go play college? Am I going to do anything after high school? What am I going to do job-wise? Who do I want to have as a wife? What do I want to? I mean, those small things. And arena football charted the course of my life. I didn't think about it at the time. I didn't know it at the time. But that journey led me to where I have my wife and my family. And life might have been different. Doesn't mean it would have been better, worse, or indifferent. Just the fact that you owe it to yourself to take opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody comes calling and wants you to play, do it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, appreciate you coming on, Coach, and just talking arena ball with me, and love to continue doing it, whether we're on camera or off camera. It's always great talking with you and picking your brain. I have my memories, but there's still a lot of this game that I don't have the memories of or the knowledge of. So it's great to talk to someone like you to get some insight.
It's got an interesting history. We always said it would make a great book. Nobody's written it yet, though. But Jim Foster really deserves a lot of credit.
Yes,
his creation and his desire to see it through. He's got to be really proud of how that got there, and I know I'm grateful to him.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So again, appreciate you coming on, Coach, and we'll be in touch, and if I could do anything for you in the future, just let me know. But again, appreciate you coming on.
Well, maybe one day when I'm retired, I might be able to help an AFL team out at some point. That's kind of my goal. I want to grow up and retire and see if I can get back in the AFL.
It's easier to stay in touch nowadays than it kind of was back in the day, like we talked before. So definitely, you're easier to get in touch with, and if I can connect, if somebody asks me, how do I get in touch with you, I got your number now, so I could definitely help you with that whenever you decide to.
No worries. And if you run across any of the AFL execs, tell them to go back to the summertime. That's where we belong.
All right, I'll definitely do my part.
Appreciate you.
All right, appreciate you. Have a good night.
Thanks, EJ. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Have a good night.